really excited to be here again with you. We are on episode 11 of this season. We're reaching the end. And as we reach the end, there's a lot of things that are happening right now in the summertime. A lot of people are off on vacation. A lot of people are coming back from vacations. Kids are out of school. There's just so much going on right now. And for me, I can tell you that I've been taking little trips every once in a while, pretty short, maybe 4 or 5 days here and there, just enjoying the summer, even though it is so hot. But I'm just really glad to be back because this episode for today is a conference episode. So you're going to probably have a little bit of a different sound value to it just because it was recorded during a conference as a panel. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what's going on. So this past Tuesday, July 5th, we had a amazing event for badass women in podcasting. So it was an event that was dedicated to the community in Houston and celebrating the rise and the power of women in the podcast community. And it was just a really great event because I was able to curate. As you all know, I'm Alicia. I'm the co-founder of the Texas Podcaster Gals, which is a community dedicated to connecting and supporting gals in their podcast journey. It is a place for us to go and find different podcasters doing different things, doing all sorts of different topics, creating their own communities, creating their own support groups, and developing just friendships. And it's a place for us to just have a great camaraderie, something that I feel like is really just important in terms of like other women supporting each other, mentoring each other, finding each other in this space, which is podcasting. And all of our listeners that are out there, I really want to encourage you to go over to the Instagram account at Texas TX Podcaster Gals, one word, and you will see who's on there, who's a different podcaster in the city of Houston, in the state of Texas. And we actually do have some people from other parts of the country. So go and check it out. It's a really great place. But like I was saying, this event, The Rise of Women in Podcasting, was hosted by Pod Houston, which is an organization here in Houston for podcasters. They also it was also sponsored by Sesh Co-working, which is a amazing community of women that can use the space for workspace, for working, for being inspired, for being productive, to get invigorated by other women around you. So Sesh Co-working was also a sponsor, and also Ozil Media, which is run by my friend Ozil de Bastos, and he is also someone who is a huge supporter of local podcasters, a huge supporter of women in podcasting. And so when he put this together and he asked me about it, I said, I'm more than happy to jump in and moderate, to jump in and curate a group of badass women podcasters. And this panel will go into, what we talked about. This episode will give you a little bit of what we discussed, some of the questions that were brought up, a lot of really great information and amazing nuggets of wisdom from our different women out there. And you will see that I will talk about Deissy Ayala. She's a creator of Life is Full of Daisies. Ashley Adams, she has a podcast called the Purple Coffee Podcast, and it's about wellness and falling forward and just developing ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I also have another person on there. Her name is Britney Crosson, and someone that I just met and I just have absolutely fallen in love with because she is really high energy, super smart, and just a really, really great person to be around. It's a really great energy. She's also a social media star, and she has over 14, maybe closer to 15 million views and counting on her dance spin bike videos and treadmill. And she's a creator of the Social Sunshine podcast. And so these ladies and I myself moderated this event. It was just amazing. It was a panel that was curated to bring you so much information, to bring you topics that women are discussing, that women want to know more about. And especially if you're a woman who wants to create or develop your own podcast, this is a great episode for you because we really go into different topics. For example, what are the current and future trends of women in podcasting, and what are we seeing current and future, as well as what lessons have we learned as a podcaster, things that we share on this episode that have helped us to prepare for our podcast, the things that our listeners are asking for, how to find ways to keep you all engaged and keeping the topics relevant and topical. So that's another thing that we talk about. We also do advice for women podcasters. We provide you all with one piece of advice that we can impart to you as we've learned along the way. Most of us have been podcasting over 2 years now. And so we really have a few great tips for you all to just listen in for that and take notes. Like if you are able to just grab like a notebook and some pencils and just get yourself seated and listen to this podcast and take some notes, because you're really going to have a lot of really good beneficial information. And we also talk about the benefits of launching a podcast. And not only do we talk about it in terms of like community and creating conversations and, reaching you as you are, different types of women out there, men out there as well. What are some of the benefits? And some people talk about benefits for their business, benefits for their brand, benefits in creating groups that are like-minded individuals, speaking to each other in ways that are more personal. And I think podcasting and just the whole audio component is just such a great way to reach people who are not necessarily always watching things, but like to be doing things or multitasking, and they'll just plug in, their headphones or plug in their, what are those called? Those pods, and, listen in. Or for like example, for me, when I'm commuting or going somewhere, I'm always plugged into some podcast. So this is a really good one for you to get in and learn about that. We also tap into monetizing podcasts. We talk about the female listener and how we can tap into that opportunity of the female listener, and maybe how to seek out advertisers who want to be in that market. We also have a Q&A at the end that you will definitely want to get into, because the ladies or the men or the community who was there at this event had some really great questions, and other women podcasters jumped in with some great ideas as well. And so it's just a really beautiful episode to learn, to get information. For me, the reason why I created this podcast was because for me, it's so important that I enhance your life in one way or another. I give you an idea for doing something that you probably haven't thought about before. If I mention something or I share something that helps you, I feel like the purpose for this podcast has been achieved. For me as a teacher, as a lifelong learner, I think, ways that we can learn and maybe, get to the next level, give you that kick in the ass to get to the next place. I think for me, I've done that in this season. This season, by the way, guys, has been really full of some really, really great talks. If you haven't jumped in on this yet, you have got to really get into it. I have, we have a Father's Day. We have an episode with my doctor, Dr. Singh. She's like super amazing. She's lovely and has a very interesting practice where she does a membership, and it's direct primary care. And let me tell you, when I need to go to her and I need her for something, she's definitely there and ready to go. We talk about networking and how women have a different women in primarily male-dominated places. We have a conversation with our sponsor, Guillermo Leal, from CycleBar West U. We have travel trends for 2022. There's just so many things. We talk about, eco fashion, which is a big thing for me. I love sustainable fashion. I find that with the way that we're seeing the world and the way we see things now, it's just got to change in terms of how we take care of our planet. And I think wasting clothing and consuming too much is also like a detriment. So if you've listened to those episodes and you like them, I encourage you to share them. This episode is chock full of good stuff. Again, we are thankful for our sponsors, Pod Houston. Follow them at Pod Houston. Follow Sesh Co-working and follow Ozio Media. You will be more than fulfilled with all the good stuff that they're sharing. These are people that are not afraid to share what they know. Like me, we want to share it. Why? Because we always feel like the more people know, the better things are for all of us as a community. So connecting, supporting you guys, especially through any journey. And if I can support you through your podcast journey, which is what this episode is about, I am excited about that. Let me know, send me a DM, Advised by Alicia. I want to know how these episodes affect you, how you want more, if you want more information. I also want to point out that if anybody has any questions, about podcasting, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer them. If one thing is clear, is that you guys know that I'm a teacher, and I definitely love to impart whatever knowledge I have for you all. So thank you so much to the panels. Thank you so much to Deissy, Ashley, and Britney for being a part of this panel. Guys, I hope you enjoy it. It is a great episode, and let's just get into it. So part of the panel is kind of getting a little bit into the badass women in podcasting. What are we thinking? What are we doing? What is in our mind? What's trending? Where are we heading as podcasters? Because I think a lot of us started in 2020. I believe most of us did. Britney, you as well, right? August?
It was 2019.
2019. So 2019. So I think it was kind of a pivotal time for a lot of us. So as we go along and we talk a little bit about podcasting and where we're heading and where we're going, I want to talk a little bit about like a current trend and then a future trend that you see for women in podcasting. And I guess we will start with Deissy.
Both current.
Yeah, just give us a current and your future. What do you see a current trend?
Obviously women-based. The biggest trend that I'm noticing is just how vulnerable women are with sharing their story to create a platform for other women to be able to follow that journey. I think because of Instagram, it's always been a very picturesque, perfect kind of platform. With podcasting, you're able to have these deeper conversations, bring on different individuals that have different, views on things, and be able to share all of those different aspects to, showcase that you can have two different views on things, but still be in a good place. And that's where I see it going right now. I just feel like it's becoming a community to be able to share all of the life that we're living currently.
Okay.
And then
future trend.
It's a good question here. I'm trying to think future trend here.
We can come back. We can come back to that future trend if you think of something. Ashley, what do you think? Current trend?
Yeah. So kind of piggybacking off the transparency. That was my biggest motivator. I come from a very conservative background, so me speaking up as a woman is, it's not frowned upon, but it's like, okay. So it really gave me an outlet and comfortability to, speak without a face, essentially, and be able to share, transparently and vulnerability. So I think that's a huge trend that's happening right now. It's just, being able to just let it all out and share whatever you have. And also the perfectionist, kind of how you talked about.
Yeah.
I started my podcast in my garage, in my car, with my phone, and they published. And I never listened to my first episode again. But it was like, why am I waiting for a custom-made studio with soundproof walls and a $200 mic to say what I need with the voice and phone? So that's a huge trend now. I love listening to podcasts where I hear the car in the background, or I hear that they're walking down, they're doing their morning jog and they're talking to you. That's so personal and it's just real. And so I feel like that's a current kind of and future trend that's happening right now.
Yeah, very cool. Britney?
So mine is, I'll show y'all. I get hot easily, so don't mind me. So mine is it's not really that deep, but it's something that I really like, that I see podcast hosts do, and I try to do on my show, is the environment that you create for the guests, and it being casual and chill, and it not being so, we're podcasting and we have to be super business
Right.
serious, some of the big podcasts that I'll see, I'll watch the video on Spotify or something, they might be in sneakers and sweats, or they might have to take their shoes off and their guests and be on the couch together, on my show, you can speak how you want. We're gonna go ahead and rate every episode explicit because you can just talk how you want, and that's my choice. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's just I love how people are kind of welcoming in guests to just relax and chill and just have a casual conversation.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. So I think hopefully it just keeps up in the future.
Yeah, so it's like a current and a future trend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that can be applied for both, you know?
It's more relaxed. Everybody's not like as stressed. Just kind of relax and chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for myself, like one of the trends that I see more is like how we can share personal stories, and then sharing like the challenges that we face in life, not just the successes, because I think a lot of people see the success a lot on, especially on social media, and people see, oh, couple goals, or see like, oh, I want that life, I want that travel life, or whatever you're doing. But I think it's important to share like the background too, a little bit of that. And like for me and for my wellness journey, it's like sharing a little bit of how I've encountered getting sick and not realizing that I was sick, but because, I put myself as a second or as a third person, taking care of parents, that kind of thing. For me, it's a trend that, like, for me, I want to share more of what my journey is and my personal journey, especially for wellness and getting better and just getting healthier, So definitely sharing personal stories is one of those things that I think is important. And for the future, I really find like podcasters can be influencers and advocates for change and for things that we want to see. I think that we consider like a lot of social media influencers in terms of like, what they're selling, but you don't necessarily have to be selling a product. You could be selling some sort of idea or change or principle or something that you really believe in and really become an advocate for it. For me, as an advocate, as a woman, as 47, health for me is super important. So I'm definitely always encouraging women to check themselves, to go to the doctor, to do a lot of self-care. And I don't mean self-care like going to get like a facial or a massage. It's about really checking in with somebody and like checking in on your mental health and checking in on yourself and checking your blood pressure and your hormones, that kind of thing. So that's a future trend that I think I see more of coming up. Maybe not so much thinking as influencers, just, product hawking, but more of like advocates for bigger principles and bigger ideas. Okay, so next question for y'all. So what are some lessons that you have learned as a podcaster in the years that you've been doing it? Or the time that you've been doing it? Yes, Daisy, you're going first. You're right here. No, you're right here.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What are the lessons you've learned as a podcaster?
Let's see. I've learned quite a bit of lessons, actually. I guess with my podcast, I talk about life and everything that encompasses it as a millennial Latina myself. And as someone that is not married or has kids, I have a whole different perspective than what, other women have. And I think that's what's beautiful about just women's podcasting community. But one of the biggest lessons I learned is I'm a recovering people pleaser, as I call it, that perfectionist, but I've learned how to allow myself to take breaks. And when I take a break, I'm giving more of myself on my podcast to my audience, that sort of thing. Because I was horrible about that. I just kept going, and I've learned to just like step back a little bit and take a breather. And even through like the women and men that I've interviewed, they've helped me learn that, and they give me their tips about life. So that's one of the biggest things that I've learned as far as like lessons in my podcast. And another lesson is just enjoying the ride. And like y'all said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just start. That's what I keep telling people. I was like, I know that you want to have the perfect logo and this or that, but finding a mentor or somebody that's already been doing it and just starting and taking those few steps, honestly, will make the biggest difference in your life. That's just one of the biggest things that I learned through podcasting.
Awesome. Yeah, taking on mentors. Ashley?
Yes. Lessons learned. I guess the first one would be don't be afraid to pivot and change. I probably changed the name of my podcast several times. But I think we can get boxed in sometimes because, maybe your dream when you first started the podcast is like this big, and then you're like, wow, I'm connecting with people, I'm doing all these things, and so many new ideas surface, and now you have a broader spectrum where you want to talk about something different, or you just totally want to revamp. Do it. Like, dive in, take it on, and just allow yourself to go with the flow and expand yourself. So that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned is don't get bogged down on any specific topic or where you start. You know, like I say, it's all about how you finish. You know, so.
Right. Very cool. That's good. That's really good advice. Brittany?
So my biggest lesson, honestly, has been I've learned to shut the hell up and listen to people because I mean we're talkers and we're podcasters and that's totally cool. But it's actually been a really cool life lesson too.
Yeah.
Because when you conduct an interview, as most of you know, like you need to talk, and a lot of people came to the show because of you. Maybe
Yes.
you're guests. And you have to take lead, and you're in charge, and make the guests feel comfortable. So you have to speak, but you also have to learn when to just zip it. And that's just been, it's a skill, right? It's not easy to do. We have all heard podcasts where the host might interrupt, and then that skill just leads into life, I feel like. So learning how to just listen and then, you know, that craft has been a cool thing to develop over time, and it helps me in like regular conversation
Right.
as well.
Do you take that as feedback for your podcast and then you make modifications?
Did I take that? Like,
Yeah, whatever you're listening to, do you take it back and then you readjust?
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the lessons exactly that I was going to say. It's like listening to the people that are really listening to my audience, because there's a lot of time when they really want me to go in on a topic that I'm just not really comfortable with because I'm just very private about certain things. But I get a lot of those, you know, asks like, please go in more on this, and please more, like, for example, relationship, like they want to know more about relationship advice. And I always feel like I can't do that because I don't think every relationship is the same, and I'm not trained. I'm not, you know, that person, but because they think or they consider what we do or what we have special, they want to know how they can have that. So that's very hard for me, but I do go in and talk a little bit about it, and I think kind of talking and listening to what they want and kind of honing my skills a little bit on that has been good, but it's difficult for me. There's certain things that I don't want to talk about that are very private for me, but finding the way to like bring them out, because that's what my listeners want more of, that's the hardest thing for me, just kind of prepping all of that and maybe bringing in more skilled, you know, advisors and people into the conversation that can contribute much more than I can.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people want to get in very personal. Like they hear you on the radio and they want to really get to know you very in a personal level. And that's awesome and that's great, but some people take it on a little bit easier and it's a little harder for me. Yeah. So let's go to the next question. So what advice do you have for women podcasters? Just one piece of advice that you can give women podcasters. Daisy, you're right here. You're just one, because I know we have 1,000. Just one.
One piece of advice. I would say let the fear go. You know, put it in the rearview mirror. It's still gonna be there. But you kind of have to give yourself a pep talk and just do it. Doesn't matter what, just go for it. Because again, like we were saying earlier, it's not gonna be perfect. But the right audience, when you're true to yourself, when you're true to what you are bringing and what platform you're building, the tribe will come. The people will follow. And I think that's when you're more genuine, that's when you're going to get more of that following and more people, and you're going to be more passionate about it. Because if you're too afraid and you're not passionate, you're going to burn out and it's just the lost dream. So just get away with the fear and just do it.
I love that. That's really good advice.
Not to take Nike's logo, but
Just do it. Just do it. Ashley?
I would say have fun and speak to the one. Speak to that one person. And that's advice I honestly got from other people, was being so specific about who you're talking to. And you know that saying, you know, jack of all trades, master of none, you know. It's really the opposite. You really need to be a master of one and not try to cast a wide net and say, oh, I have to watch what I say here, this here, or make sure I'm not too much of this or too much of that, because there's someone that resonates with every part of
Right.
know, what you represent. And so, you know, I'm talking to the young single mother who's super ambitious about her career, but she's a perfectionist and doesn't know how to do it all. but you know, she just trips and falls and gets back up. And so if that resonates with anyone, great, but I want the one. I don't want the many. I just want the one person saying, hey, yeah, that makes total sense, you know? So specific, narrow your audience, you just look for that one person.
Very cool. Brittany?
So mine would be specifically to you if you are going into this podcasting thing seriously and have really, really big hopes and dreams for it and want it to be a part of your business and want it to be a big part of your life and make a huge impact, and you're hardcore about it, is to be consistent. Release episodes consistently. Don't be wishy-washy. So, and look, if it's a hobby and it's not serious, it's cool, do what you want, right? But like if this is going to be a big thing for you, or you're hoping it is, that's one of just the biggest things I see with podcasters is that there's not enough consistency in releasing the episodes. I mean, it's one thing to be like, we're going to take off a few weeks at the end of the year, fine. But you know, your listener wants to see you pop up in that feed every week. You know, they look forward to that and listen to you for a reason. So that's honestly one of the biggest things. If you can do that, if you can truly commit and actually put out an episode, probably weekly is the most common, I would say, for most podcasters, and do that for a long time, if you're going to be miles ahead of everybody
for
else,
sure.
you're going to be one of the last people standing when a lot of people have fallen off. And it's a really special thing to be able to truly commit to it and keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like you and I have very much similar tracks because that's kind of the same thing I said. It's like you determine what your voice is going to be, and if your podcast is going to be a hobby or if it's going to be something that you want longevity for. Is it something that's going to be an additional platform as a brand for whatever you're doing? If it's for your business, is it for your influencer marketing, whatever you're doing, like what are you considering it for and what are you setting it up for? Because initially you want to set those foundations, and you want to set those foundations to be really, really firm because, for example, for me, from the very beginning, I wanted it to be, you know, a long-term thing. It wasn't just a hobby, something that I just took on for the pandemic and for fun. I really considered it sort of a job and a business for me as well. And I thought about it in terms of like, how can I set the foundations for it so that I create something that has longevity, that's not just here for a few months or few years, but for forever, for a long time. So like for me, it's really the advice is have a clear voice, have a clear sense of where you want it to go. Do you really want it to be something that's going to have, you know, standing, or is it something that's just going to be for now and for fun? And that's totally fine. Sure, you can totally do that, but it's as long as you are very clear on that. So many people ask, well, you know, how did you get, you know, this speaker? Were you able to get that interview? And it's because I really take it as a very serious business for me. Whenever I bring on a speaker, I know it's somebody that really resonates with my audience. So having a very clear voice and having a clear vision of what you want your podcast to be, I think it's helpful. And if it's a hobby, that's perfectly fine too. I know a lot of people who do that as well, and it's successful for them. All right, so what have been the benefits of launching your podcast?
Meeting a very diverse group of individuals. Most of mine are women, but I have interviewed a few men here and there. That's probably been one of the biggest things, is just meeting and then getting me out of my comfort zone. Like that's huge for me. Is it's like you have to put on this like interview hat, and you're the interviewer, and you also have to make them feel comfortable. And like for me, I've always wanted it to sound like it's two friends having coffee, and the other person's just sitting across the table from us. And that's just what my goal is when I'm having these conversations with anybody that I interview. I just want it to be very real, like what you're saying. And you have to make it just very genuine and real to how you're putting it out there. So those have been mine.
That's great. Ashley?
Yeah. Well, definitely connection, diversify. That's probably the best. And I think that's surprisingly one of the most immediate benefits that I found. It's almost immediately after I posted my first garage episode. You know, people were like, "Wow, that was great! Was it really?" but people I didn't even know because I'm an Instagram for it. So like, it was like, wow! Like immediately, it was like, and it's kind of reassuring for you because it's like, my thoughts make sense. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
So that's also really great. I got dived into yours. Okay, it's also a fantastic conversation starter.
Yes. Yes.
People are really excited that, and it's a very, it's a blessing for me, and it's a skillful ability to be able to speak to your thoughts, you know, to be able to put them into words and say them out loud. It's a very powerful thing to do, and people find that absolutely fascinating, more than being a twin mom, which I find so I love that you can start conversations with it and just connect and meet new people. If you're struggling with that in any way, get in your garage tonight.
Yeah, they're going to be there tonight. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley.
Those are great. I agree with those. The people and relationship building is a huge part, but I figure I'll make it a little bit different and speak to you if you're podcasting for business, like how it can help your business. It's a lot of people assume advertisers that that's the way to make it a businessy thing, but actually most podcasters don't have advertisers, and a lot of podcasters are doing it for their business, and they just make it like an overall part of the marketing strategy.
Yes.
And what that can do, besides obviously, like you were saying, building relationships with people, because that's really important in business, as you probably know, but also, like, it's cool. Like, you're like an authority in your industry.
Right.
Because you're on there having a show about it, and it's kind of baller status, you know? It really is, and it's just a cool way to gain credibility in your industry, right? So, like, if you're if you're a plumber and you have a show that gives all these free tips, right, about how you can do things in your home with your plumbing, I feel like that's exciting for that business, and that's going to build them up and their reputation up, and just add to their exposure in general. So that's a really huge benefit of podcasting for anybody. You don't have to have huge advertisers to see that benefit.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, I think the benefit has been like definitely creating a community of like-minded women, of women in sort of my same stratosphere. I think for us, especially for me with kids that are growing, going into college, and also like taking care of parents, that's been sort of a niche that I've kind of created, because a lot of the women in my age group are taking care of parents and taking care of kids. A lot of us are going through transitions in our lives, in our marriages. Some of us are growing closer to our partners, and some of us are getting divorced at this point, so there's a lot of that's going on, but definitely creating that sort of place where the women can come in, or they can listen to something that's going to help them and it's going to be a resource for them, or a source of inspiration, or a source of motivation, or some education that they can grasp, where I can be of help for them, and not just do it for myself, but do it for my community and the women that follow me and listen to me, because they're seeking out something that's specific to that community that I belong to. Even though I do want to reach the millennials, and I'm like, also looking at Gen Xers, millennials, and all of them, I just feel like, for me, my community is that woman that, that Gen Xer that's at that point in her life. But honestly, every conversation that I have, or that I try to have on my podcast, really is geared towards, as, one day you're going to come across that thought, and it's going to help you at some point, right? That's what I'm hoping. Anyways, so we talked about the benefits of launching. So let's talk a little bit about, how we are monetizing, if we are monetizing on the podcast, and if we're not. Like women, like Ozio mentioned earlier, like they're the growing population listening to podcasts. Like it says, additional listeners over the last 2 years have been women, and the ad revenue has increased by $2 billion. I think you mentioned it earlier, Ozio, over the last 3 years. Even light podcast listeners, which are like 1 to 3 times a month, they're light listeners, are roughly the same as all podcast listeners. So there's still a lot of light listeners, and female podcast listeners have doubled in the last 2 years. So that's an amazing. So knowing those stats and knowing those numbers, are you, as a podcaster, seeing this as an opportunity to tap into women listeners and seek out sponsorships or advertisers who want to target that market?
I mean, I'm fully open to it. It's just been harder to gain that traction for me. It's been more just helping like business and helping open up those opportunities and doors. That's what I've utilized it for.
Okay. Which is kind of the same. It's kind of like taking one step at a time.
Yeah, so I don't know, y'all.
Ashley?
Yeah, I personally don't do it for monetization purposes right now. You never know. But right now, like you kind of said, I'm attaching it to other businesses that I do, and you know, just talking about other things. I don't totally love a lot of ads in a podcast, and if they are, you know, at least make them specific to what you're talking. You know, like you're listening to this podcast, all of a sudden you get a plumbing ad.
Yeah.
That was the 30 seconds I lost in my life, you know.
So do you disconnect from that podcast because of that?
I do.
Yeah. No, it's good feedback to have for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
if
you
it's
disconnect.
not frequent, you know. I mean, obviously you have to do what you have to do. I want podcasts that I like to stay alive, you know. And people do what they can, but as specific as you can be to what you stand for, you know.
Like true to the values that you stand for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's more valuable to me than money.
That correlates with your brand image and your brand vision as well. Brittany?
So something cool that we've done on my show that I know other people have done and we're doing with our clients too is to advertise your own thing, but officially. So it's not just I'm chatting and I'm gonna make sure I mention my business and things like that. I actually recorded an ad for a membership that I run, and I treated it as if my membership hired me. And that's something that you might consider doing because it's easy to do. You can record your own ad in like 60 seconds or less.
Yeah.
And tuck it right in the middle of the show. And it's your own voice, and it's not some random plumbing commercial from some other voice. And it's relevant because your listener probably knows about you and your business in a little bit, and it makes sense. And you are, but by recording it as an ad, you're treating it professionally, like, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
when you're getting into the action, like .com for, you know, to join or whatever, I really like that. You know, in addition to, of course, if you had an advertiser that actually, like you were saying, was relevant
Right.
to the show.
Yeah, and I think it's probably one of those things, and Ozzy, I think maybe you can talk a little bit more about it as we go along. It's one of those things that's kind of tricky as we seek sponsorships, as we seek people to support our podcast, because honestly, it's not self-sustaining unless you have somebody kind of supporting it as you go along. It does take work, especially if you have a producer, if you have somebody working your social media, if you have a videographer coming in doing the videos for you, or you have somebody doing photography for your socials, promotion, marketing. Some people hire PR people. So I definitely think it's something it's worth considering, especially if you're really thinking about it in a very serious way.
And there are other ways too, like hosting events, you know, donations, you know. There are other ways to monetize outside of ads, you know, for your podcast. There's a million ways to say.
Yeah, and I think as Britney does that for sure, like in your social media group, and also you had an event recently, so that was another way for you to kind of like do a little tangent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And affiliate stuff. You're an affiliate for somebody, like we're an affiliate for Canva. You know, because it makes sense. It's about social media, it's about marketing.
Yeah, of course.
So you can be an affiliate for something that makes sense to your brand, and you get paid a little bit each time somebody actually uses your link. That's a simple way to do it.
Absolutely. Very good. And if anybody wants to know a little bit more about us, please follow us on our socials. We're all on Instagram, and we're all excited to join in with you guys. Does anybody have any questions for anyone or want to know a little bit more about something? I think we're open. Yes.
Do you have for your Texas women podcast?
Yes.
Do you have like a website for that, or?
Not a website. It's just an Instagram account right now.
And what is it? I'm gonna follow you.
It's TX Podcaster Gals.
Okay.
GALS. Very Texas gals. That's what we thought. Very Texas. Do you have any more questions? You can follow us, seek us. Yes.
My question is, like, how do you find like inspiration? Like you say, you post like deeply, and so how do you know what you're going to talk about like, next week or whatever? Like consistent like content.
Content, yeah. Do you want to?
For me, So like right now I'm kind of in a break. I always take a month break in between because this is not my full-time job. I have another full-time job, and I actually will sit down and start writing down ideas, and then I'll have themes or whatever each month and kind of interview people in that sense. Or if I do find somebody, I'll literally go on Instagram and start looking at other people's pages just to see what inspires me, and then that's kind of what I will kind of lean towards, and I'll just start reaching out to people and scheduling the interviews that way.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of like note taking and topics and like really going in like one day, just doing like a brainstorm of the things that you really care about. Because, you know, the more you care about the subject, the more passionate you are about it, the more people are going to get into it. The more they're going to love what you're talking about because you're interested in it and you show that interest. So yeah, so just sit down one day and just brainstorm all the topics that come to your head. Maybe get with a friend that you really trust and you guys have a good rapport. Just go back and forth.
I was going to ask about the advertisements, specifically, Ashley, you said you may disconnect from things like that. So on mine, I do have advertisements, but they are specific to my podcast. Season 1 was with a co-host, and we would naturally say it, I forget what the word is, but we would just, at a certain point in the episode, we would be like, oh yeah, and don't forget about this, and we would do the ad naturally. It was different every episode. Season 2 is now just me, by myself, no co-host, and I've now pre-recorded them, but they sound natural. I mean, the same listener's gonna hear them every time, but like, it's not like reading from an ad. So I just wanted to know, like, I've never received feedback from ads, whether season 1 or 2, but I don't know, like, are there ad versions that you guys prefer? Like, I like how Britney, you said, like, you make your own business as an ad.
As an ad,
Stuff like that, but I don't know. Yeah, I am trying to monetize my podcast, and so how do I keep someone who's like turned off by that? Or,
Yeah, great question.
The influencers, how do I keep you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, on the flip side, what if you didn't? And there were like 7 billion other people in the world that you didn't. You know what I mean? Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But also, like you said, it's all in your approach. I have a sales job that I do, and when I'm talking about things about us, I'm not necessarily speaking to, hi, go purchase these leggings for $190. I'm like, hey guys, these look badass on me today.
Right. So there are some that kind of like attract you to it, some styles that you.
Or it's just like I love when it's like, oh, I just listened to an ad, like after the fact.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, wow, that was kind of surprising because I couldn't tell, like you said, it was natural. For me, I'm very much, I love like playful, right? Like just like very, like, hey,
Easy banter.
you should go to the Container Store today, girl. You just like containers, but just like, I can feel your personality. I can feel like you're just trying to have fun with it.
Okay.
And then that's less of like, please go to the Container Store.
Right.
You get 10% off.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Hey, do you ever listen to Skinny
Yeah.
Confidential? Lauren is the best deliverer of ads in all of it. No offense to anyone else who delivers ads, but she's the queen of delivering ads.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you don't like her, I guess you don't want to listen to her ads. But if you do, I mean, she's good.
Yeah, she's great.
She's really, because you listen and she really has
Yeah.
used the product and she's talking about the details and how whenever I put on this lip balm and it's just like the right temperature and it's so smooth and it's not chalky, you know what I mean? Like she's so detailed and you can just tell that she's actually tried the product. And
Yes.
It's some random crap that, to me, like she's the perfect example of it.
She's a perfect example because as long as we love what we're sharing and our ads are a part of our life and something that we're actually in love. Like my CycleBar sponsors here, for example, and I'm a CycleBar person, like I'm there all the time. So for me, it was so natural for me just to ask Guillermo, who's here, like, hey, will you sponsor in my podcast? Because I love you guys and I would love for other people to know who you are, especially because it also goes back to my wellness journey because I have hypertension. So my doctor was like, do tons of cardio, it'll help you. It all relates to that, so people know that about me. Yes.
How much are you charging?
So it just depends. It has I have different levels.
$100.
It's between 250 and 500 right now.
So enough to cover production.
Enough to cover production, exactly. And eventually, as my numbers go up in downloads, I'll reconsider where I go with that. But honestly, I'm very loyal to the people that got started with me from the very beginning. So that's kind of who I am as a person. But definitely, like, gauge where you are, what you want to do, and then also, like, what is your expenses and what is it going to cover, and what do you want it to cover for you?
I want to interject something
Yeah.
real quick. I would just say the bigger your podcast gets, the more of an audience you have. I think the more people expect that there's going to be advertising because any really big podcast is doing it. So starting ads even before your show is really big, it prepares your audience for ads. And so
Good point.
if you don't like it,
Yes.
you kind of expect, that you're going to hear it on a larger show. So.
Very good point. Thank you so much for that. Yes.
And also the value of your podcast. Like if your content has amazing value, I don't care if there's ads there. I'm going to listen because you give all this amazing information, you give me all this value. We watch shows all the time that have ads that have nothing to do with the show.
The show, yeah.
Because we love the value of the show. We will sit through the ad. Right. So don't overthink it. Yes, sometimes it's annoying, but if your show is interesting,
Yes.
if it is amazing, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just something I've been self-conscious of, being a consumer of influencer content creation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that was so unnatural, and you don't use that.
Yeah.
You do not shop there. I really do.
Yeah.
Someone else who shops there, I'm gonna use their code, right? Like, I want to support that person. So that's, I was curious because I'm similar to you. Like, I would be annoyed if it had nothing to do with
Of course, yeah.
But it's, now that I'm doing it, I'm like, am I doing it
But
right?
but also part of it is just becoming comfortable in knowing your worth, in knowing who you are and your worth, and knowing that you're providing value and you're going to give something back.
Right. Yeah.
And you can hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great. It's a great question. Any more questions? Oh, we have somebody back there, Angelica.
Sometimes the models do a lot of interviews, and we're in the middle of the interview, sometimes we do pre-interviews, right? Sometimes the conversation doesn't go where you want it to go, or it doesn't go, it just, you thought you were gonna have a 40-minute episode, and you're like that down to 15 minutes, and you're like, what do I do? Do y'all have like any questions in your back pocket that you ask, or?
Yeah. Who wants to take that one? That's a great combo.
You said if it's not, it's don't like it can go as long
If it's not going as planned.
It's like going as planned, so I never tell an interview, like, hey, like, I'm like, this is not going well, like, I'm already in the middle.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so like what I found was I have questions, but I'm running out of questions, interesting questions. Do you all have questions, and where do you find them? Or do you have like, what is there a trick you do?
Okay. Want me to go?
Sure.
I am so.
Yes.
What you learn about the person ahead of time is obviously helpful in that, in like working in their personal life too. I don't know what your subject matter is, but like, so that's kind of fun to break the ice if you feel like maybe the conversation there's a lull in it. If you bring up their dog or whatever the thing is. I've had to do that before where I could tell the person maybe was nervous or something. Maybe it wasn't so bad that they weren't comfortable. So if you kind of talk about their comfort zone, that can help. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, I like what you said about that too, and also like how you mentioned earlier, shutting the hell up and listening. Like you can pull things from what they're saying. So like you said something about breaking the ice. So I would say, oh, well, tell me more about how you break the ice.
Right.
Just taking little pieces, and that's how you confirm that you're understanding what someone's saying. Because you might be thinking that this one way, and they're going totally left, and then you open up a whole new portal. So
Yes.
I would just take that advice of really taking the time to listen and grab pieces of what they're saying as they go to expand on little comments that they make.
Deissy, did you want to add to that?
they kind of said what I was gonna say already. But yeah, I mean, I also always ask ahead of time in my before I interview them if there's anything specific they want to speak about as far as their life, their business, whatever. So that way, I kind of have a preset like set of questions. Sometimes I don't get to ask all of them because we've gone way over time. So I'll have my preset questions, and then, like I said, just listening, because a lot of times you pretend like you are having a conversation with your best friend or whomever, and you're actively listening, because a lot of times then a conversation will spark from something they said.
Yeah.
And then you go off on another tangent,
Yeah.
and that's why you do need to have kind of a guide. For me,
A guideline.
I've had to have a guideline of what direction I want my podcast or interview to go, because I'm a talkative person and I can go off on 5 other different topics, but we always have to kind of keep that episode to that person.
Did we answer your question, Angelica?
Yeah, can I add something?
Yes.
I would say if you prep your guests ahead of time, so let them know, but the more prep
What's
you
coming.
can do, like read a book, get on their social
Learn their bio really well.
about them that way, and then like every podcast episode I spend 5 minutes at the front of the interview, like I know the subject, I know where it's gonna go, and I just say, hey, this is the direction that we're gonna go, so then they're comfortable with it, and then having those questions, think like who, what, where, when, how, why, like a reporter would, like, well, who influenced you to do that, or why did that make such a big difference in your life? So I love what you said about, just hacking on to just listening,
To some-
and then
yeah.
think about
To
those
something they
who, what,
said.
where, and why. Like, how could you say, who, influenced you to do that? Or those follow-up questions.
Also, some conversations can just be shorter than others.
Yeah.
If it's like really bad, it's like, what? You're not a long talker, are you? We're just gonna thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, and being okay with that. Yeah.
But I do want to add something I've done. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Something I've also done is I'll record something, based on the conversation we had on my own personal experience or my own opinion, and I'll give my 2 cents about it, and that adds 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes. I know a lot of times we're afraid to speak solo on our own podcast, but don't be. A lot of people value those,
Maybe share a personal story that relates to that, a personal experience, an anecdote that relates to that conversation.
or acknowledge something that's going on in the world currently, and you want to make sure that you voice it to your followers, because life's always constantly going, and the outside influences are always there, but you also want to be
Yeah.
relevant to what's going on, or at least that's for me. I like to stay relevant on what's going on so that it helps us create conversations.
So relation to the topic, basically. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Or give your own, I have life lessons, and then I'll throw in my own, 2 cents, and then I'll just edit it myself and just smash it together to where it sounds like it's a fluid.
But if the conversation, like Britney said, is only 20 minutes, be okay with that, and then tap into what Deissy said. Go in and maybe add an anecdote, maybe add a story that kind of goes into that. Yeah. I think we all have those moments where they're dragging. Yeah. We've all been there. Yes. Yeah. Do we have any more questions, Uzio? I don't know when you're ready for us
We have
to.
some time. I think we have, Laura, you have a question? I think we have.
Laura, did you have a question?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have.
Oh, go ahead.
How do you find influencers to promote your show?
Oh gosh, I don't have influencers that promote my show yet.
Mine, I've just interviewed them, and
Oh, we asked the guests to do
Yeah,
to
they
do
promote it
promotion
for
for us too. Yeah.
What do you say, what do you ask them to do specifically, other than, hey, share with your family and friends?
No, for sure. I'm very specific. I'm at least share it with at least 5 to 10 people, 5 at least, minimum 5 people. The other thing I do tell them, and one of my sponsors is here and he's gonna hear it, but I always tell them you're so close to the biggest downloads. Your downloads are really there. You're almost there. You gotta keep sharing. You gotta keep sharing. So they'll do that. They're like, oh, I shared it again. Yeah, and so I give them the link. I give them the graphic. They can reshare the graphic on social. So we can definitely do that. Create things that they can share that are shareable. And then also some of my guests, because I know some of the ladies that come on, I know that they have big platforms. They do live shows or they do interviews with me. So I'll know that there's going to be cross promotion.
That's a good tip, because I forget to go back
Yes.
and say, hey, share some more.
Yes.
Or just
Exactly.
tag them. Like I do episode rewinds, like Alicia does, or just tag them in your stories and in the post, so that way they get that reminder and they share it onto their platform as well. Sometimes you kind of have to do the work for them to get them to like.
You gotta push.
Make it as easy on people as possible.
Yeah.
So, my show's about social media because that's what I work in. So I'm gonna have social media things for guests. We better, right? So we're great at that, and we have like multiple things that they can post, a video clip, an audio, all the stuff, and it gets emailed to the person. All because if you don't make it easy on somebody, everybody's gonna.
They're not gonna do it. Yeah.
Even if they love being on the show, and they'll forget, right? So if you like in like a
So just a standard template that you-
anything you can give them to make it easy on them to share, definitely. Yeah. Okay, good.
Great advice.
He had a question back there.
Oh, yes.
So my question is more, do you have any shortcuts or tools that you use to promote your content, like apps or anything like that you would recommend?
I don't.
Headliner is a good one.
Oh yeah.
That's where you can create audiograms, where it's just the audio, the movement, wave imager, and the captions and stuff on your show artwork. You can also use something like Subtitle or something else if you want to do a video clip from your show.
What was that?
Subtitle, like subtitle with a Z.
It creates the captions for you, right?
It creates the captions for you. You can style it and brand it that way. Canva is always good
I love
for
Canva.
anything. Yeah.
I know. Where's my son? My son is here, and he's like, Canva is like such for old people. He's over there. He's like, Mom, you're doing Canva. What do you guys use? What do you guys use? Young people, what do y'all use? Yeah. Premiere Pro and After Effects. I love it because I'm learning a lot from him too, because, you know, the other thing that I incorporated this year was video. So something that I do a lot in promoting and cross-promoting and doing is just doing little video clips. Short video clips is something that I do. And something that Deissy does really well is she uses a lot of reels on her Instagram, and that gets her a lot of engagement for sure. And so I think each of us, whatever we feel comfortable with, I think is what we use the most or going for. But the headliner's great.
How long
You can make them as you got to follow those trends. I mean, you know more.
Reels can be up to 90 seconds right now.
That's the longest they should be.
That's as long as they can be on actual reels. Yeah. TikTok is longer.
Yeah. But I make mine usually about a minute. I'll take a clip. I use Headliner, and I'll make a clip, and then I'll caption it and all that, and then I'll use that on other platforms. So I already have a clip, and then I'll always put the link to that episode on when I'm sharing it.
And on your reels, do you put your brand or your?
Yes, your logo,
It's
everything.
headliner.westu.com.
It's an app, like Headliner.
It's also a website.
Is it?
Yeah.
Headliner dot
app.
.app, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Sure what? Yes. It's a website too.
Yes.
I was gonna ask if any of you do clips, but do you do YouTube as well in full, and have you found benefit in that? Is that like, for me, like I should just really concentrate right now on 2 things that I need to do, and then maybe in a few months I'll like add a third?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, YouTube is mostly whatever my Podbean sends. And then a clip that I'll upload, maybe like a minute clip that my son does for me.
Okay, but you put the full video on YouTube.
It's the audio, it's not video.
Oh, okay, video-wise, do any of you?
No.
I've done it before. I haven't prioritized.
I did not.
Yeah, I haven't prioritized it either.
I have somebody who said, she records it all, but she said people tune out. They don't want to watch a podcast for
Yeah, I've
5
heard
minutes.
mixed reviews.
So she just puts on
Yeah.
the first 4 minutes and then links it to.
That's what I do. I do a clip and then I link it to the podcast.
If you were doing like an interview, yeah.
People at home, while they might not be watching the video, they're listening while they're working.
Right.
So
Yep.
you can bring people over.
Definitely.
Well, thank you everyone, and follow us. We are all on social. I'm at Vibes by Alicia on Instagram and
Life is full of daisies, but it's DEISSY.
or Daisies, yes. Yes. Ashley, where can they find you?
Yes. At the Ashley Adams _ or her podcast.
And Britney.
It's at Britney Crosson. It's spelled weird. But if you like Britney Spears like I do, it's spelled like her. B-R-I-T. And C-R-O-S-S-O-N. My show has one too, but you can find it in my bio.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. It's amazing.